Good morning and welcome to Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy. I'm your pharmacist, Paul White. We're very glad you joined us. It's hard to believe that we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of our Health Matters radio program. We are planning some special shows to celebrate this milestone, so we hope you'll stay tuned. Let us begin today by thanking our sponsors, Cleveland Clinic Mercy Hospital, Studio Arts and Glass, and of course, our socially distant producer, JD DeAngelis. Joining me is Brad White, a compounding pharmacist, and our very special guest, Jim Hernser, pharmacist from Las Colinas Pharmacy, Compounding and Wellness. Jim has been featured on the Dr. Phil Show, so we're excited to have such a renowned guest with us this morning. Good morning, Jim, and welcome to the show.
Morning, Paul, and good morning, Brad. And hey, I just want to congratulate you guys on the great work you're doing for your community there. The information that you share is vital, and I applaud you for your efforts.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Have you ever wondered what a compounded prescription or a compounding pharmacy is? Compounding is the creation of a pharmaceutical preparation, a drug basically, by a licensed pharmacist to meet the unique needs of an individual patient when a commercially available drug does not meet those needs. Common examples include prescriptions for infants, pets, and custom hormone preparations. If you're a fan of Dr. Oprah, Dr. Phil, or Suzanne Summers, you might have listened to episodes about bioidentical hormones. Jim is responsible for the formulation of many bioidentical hormone, dermatological, nutritional, and anti-aging compounds in a wide use throughout the United States today. This morning, we're going to talk with Jim about compounding and the concerns about legislative threats to compounding and patient access. We'd like to remind our listeners that today's program is available on our podcast. Just search your favorite podcast app for Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy, and we'd appreciate if you'd subscribe.
So, Jim, again, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and your training.
Well, and professionally, after I graduated college, I worked a couple of years for the chain drugstores, and then very early on opened my own pharmacy. And it was just an independent pharmacy, corner drugstore in 1984. So we've been in business a long time, maybe not as long as the Medicine Center, but quite a while. And my knowledge in pharmacy, I really had a lot of confidence, I guess, in traditional medicine. And then some things happened in my personal life. My wife had some medical issues. She had gynecological issues. Unfortunately, at 28 years old, had to have surgery and was then menopausal at age 28. Unfortunately, traditional medicine did not have any answers for her. Saying, oh, we'll just put her on this pharmaceutical preparation, she'll be fine. Well, she wasn't. And she went from this dynamo with photographic memory and unbelievable drive and just brilliant to just she said, Jim, I have so much anxiety. I have my memory is now foggy. I feel bad all the time. My immune system is crashing. And I was just thinking, I cannot see this girl that I love degrade like this. And so I came up with the very first transdermal estradiol gel in the country. And I was just trying to fix my girl. I wasn't trying to be brilliant or get rich or anything. I just wanted to fix my gal. And she started getting better. And since then, our knowledge in integrative medicine and how to affect the immune system, how to affect hormones and balance hormones, how to improve the quality of life of our patients has advanced tremendously. And it's all because of just, I was just trying to fix my girl. So now you know where my heart is. My heart is trying to help patients like my wife who have had issues that traditional medicine just doesn't have answers for.
So, Jim, Brad shared a little bit about what compounding is, but please share some of the details on what compounding is and the benefits that compounding provides.
As Brad said, it's the creation of a customized therapy medication for a patient, and I love that because doctors have this restriction within traditional medicine. A box that they need to work in, and they're boxed in by what is available commercially. And so isn't it great that as compounders, we can offer a much broader variety of therapies to help these patients, and sometimes in ways that traditional medicine has not even a clue about. I mean, when I think about the times that I've reversed autoimmune disease, I've reversed diabetes, I've rebalanced hormones, I've done an incredible numbers of things. I've helped patients with traumatic brain injury and PTSD, overcome that, reintegrate into society. The things that are happening in my practice are mind-boggling, and it's impossible without compounds. And so a lot of my traditional doctors, who most of my friends are traditional doctors, they are not integrated medicine doctors, they're traditional guys, but they've seen my patients do better than their patients. And so therefore they send them over to Jim's. I don't know what Jim's doing over there, but just go over there, see him, and tell us what he says we should do. And isn't that a great compliment to the fact that we're acting evidence-based, we're having great patient outcomes, but it's not what traditional medicine prescribes.
Interesting. So I know your pharmacy, like our pharmacy, is accredited compounding lab. What's that mean? And why is it important how our listeners can identify an accredited compounding pharmacy when they have a need for a compounded prescription?
I do believe in the accreditation process. Matter of fact, last week we had our survey. We've been accredited since 2014, and that was the early on when PCAB, or the Pharmacy Accreditation Board, and it's right behind you on your billboard. That really shows that pharmacy is going the extra mile for their patients, not only for quality, but for safety, for efficacy of their compounds. It's showing that they are doing everything that they possibly can to ensure a good and safe patient outcome. And I can tell you that accreditation survey, when they come in, they put their nose in every little detail of your business. And they do the same thing in hospitals. You hear about hospitals being accredited and surgery centers being accredited. Well, I think that compounding pharmacies should be accredited as well. And I think that just gives that little extra assurance to patients that, this is a pharmacy that is doing it the right way.
Jim, I'd just like to follow up on that. I don't think people can appreciate any accreditation process on any level, whether it be physician practice or hospital or compounding pharmacy, until you've been through it, because it really does make you look at your operations and workflow in a totally different lens. And, you may walk by a box on the floor in your hallway every day when you come to work or walk out of your house, but the accreditors walk in and go, why is that there? What's it doing? Do you realize that could cause a problem? And so it really reframes your mental image. And I think that I agree with you 110% that I feel like when we get questioned by a provider or a patient, how do you know that this says on the label what's in it? We know. And it's hands down comforting. So why don't you talk, Jim, a little bit about how pharmaceutical compounding in our compounding labs is different from big drug manufacturing, like Moderna and Pfizer's vaccines, for something everyone would recognize.
Yeah, back in 2013, Congress passed an addendum to the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act called the Drug Quality Security Act. And basically, it separated the types of compounding pharmacies there are out there, because before that, we were all lumped into the same group. And so it said, okay, you guys that are like independent pharmacies, just filling prescriptions for compounds for your community. So you are a 503A. And I'm not going to test you on that later. And basically, those are the types of pharmacies that you and I are, Brad, Paul, that we get a prescription from a doctor. We fill that as he prescribed, and then make sure that the patient is well counseled on how to use that medication. Whereas a manufacturer is operating under a different set of rules, and that's good manufacturing practices, GMP rules. And so different set of rules. Now our rules are very strict, and their rules are strict, but their rules fit their type of operation, and our rules fit our type of operation. So we're both very strongly regulated, I should say. But we have to have a prescription for our compounds, whereas they are manufacturing to be redistributed.
Very good. Who regulates compounding pharmacies, and who do compounding pharmacies follow? And do compounding pharmacies follow the same regulations as drug manufacturers?
Yeah. And as I kind of cleared that up on the previous question, but I can say that we are highly regulated, and a lot of I know that I've had a little bit of a pause when I hear some drug rep telling a doctor that, oh, who knows, they're compounding that stuff in bathtubs in the back of their places. I mean, who knows how they're doing that stuff? Well, what they don't give us credit for is that not only we have this Drug Quality Security Act, which spells out what we have to do to subscribe to quality practices and safe practices for our patients, but also the state boards of pharmacy regulate us and have traditionally regulated us even long before this Drug Quality Security Act was released. And my state board of pharmacy looks into every little nook and cranny of my practice here in Texas, almost as much as PCAB does. And because they want to know that I'm doing the right thing to protect the citizens of Texas from bad compounders or bad pharmacists in traditional settings. So yes, we are highly regulated.
We are, and in Ohio, it's no different. I mean, the Ohio State Board of Pharmacy has very well trained inspectors, and they have done a lot to help us improve our practice, and I'm grateful for that.
Brad, I'm actually proud to say that the state of Texas, excuse me, recognized our practice and asked me and a couple of other high-level compounders in Texas to get onto an advisory committee. And we are helping the inspectors to understand what it constitutes a quality compounding pharmacy. And so the inspectors said, we need help. Just help us know what to look for when we inspect a pharmacy so that we can do a better job. And I've been really proud that they're actually changing some of the rules in Texas to reflect a little bit higher standard of care. And I'm kind of proud of that because I want us all to do a good job. I don't want some guys to be underperforming, and not because they have bad ethics. Maybe they just don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
Okay, probably should take a break here. You're listening to Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Welcome back to Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Brad and I are discussing the benefits of compounded medications with Jim Hernser from Texas.
All right, Jim, we talked about regulation that we undergo. How about how does a patient know if they're going to be benefiting from a compounded preparation?
Well, the fact that, first of all, I guess we should say, how do we know? How does the patient even know if it even is compounded? A lot of patients don't understand compounding. Matter of fact, in a poll, 50% of Americans did not even know what compounding was. Okay, so it's important for us, and I take pride in the fact that most compounders that I know put a lot of effort into counseling their patients. So when they get a compounded medication, we don't just say, hey, take this with food and good luck. We spend a little time with them to make sure that they are successful in the therapy. And so I'm really proud of the fact that most compounders really take that to heart and spend time with their patients.
I agree 100% because a lot of time, you know how the adage goes, a medication not taken doesn't do any benefit or can't have any benefits, but it really sometimes you need that extra TLC to help a patient get through a challenging situation. And that often really makes all the difference. What about special training that we go through to be compounding pharmacists?
Compounding pharmacies have to get their chemicals, we call them active pharmaceutical ingredients or APIs, from wholesalers. And these wholesalers have done a good job at locating ethical sources for the chemicals from FDA inspected facilities. They buy these chemicals, package them, and then sell them to us. And those wholesalers have also done a really good job of educating compounding pharmacies to step up their game, to become more informed. And for instance, I can call them up and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to make this compound for a child. And they said, yes, mix this and this together, but make sure that you have the pH proper, because otherwise that medication will break down if the pH goes too low. Even though it may taste better if it's a little more acidic, unfortunately, it'll break the drug down. And, all those little tips help us. Matter of fact, like I buy, for instance, hormones, and the hormones that I buy have the smallest particle size possible. And that smallest particle size means better absorption through the skin or better absorption from the stomach. than if I bought a cheap chemical that wasn't any good. So we need to learn these lessons, and so I love it that these pharmaceutical wholesalers that we use they all have good programs to help us to become better and safer compounders.
Very good. Compounded hormones and hormone replacement therapy are the most widely talked about compounded prescription. Can you tell us why they're so important and why patients of compounded hormones are so passionate about them?
Man, I'm passionate about them. When I know that getting those hormones in my girlfriend, I call my wife my girlfriend. We've been married 43 years, and I know that it saved my marriage because she was not herself. And when we got her hormones, I got my girl back. And we are still happy 43 years later. And so it makes difference in the quality of life. It makes difference in the health of these patients. Matter of fact, just an example, the University of Arizona just released a study a week ago. And this study said that women who use bioidentical hormones have a 78% decreased risk of dementia. And I don't know about you, but I'm really scared of dementia. And the fact that women can decrease their risk by 78% by using bioidentical hormones. And that's over traditional hormones. Traditional hormones only had a 50% protection. So using bioidentical hormones had a 28% increased protection for women. So things like that. I mean, we know that women who use bioidentical hormones also have a 50% reduction in cardiovascular risk, heart attack and stroke. They have a 20% decreased risk in breast cancer. Now that's surprising. You would think they'd have an increased risk with these hormones. Studies show that they have a decreased risk of breast cancer by 20% over women who are using nothing. And then we also know that they're having a reduced risk of osteoporosis, which is number 2 killer of women, and other even colon cancer. So we love the fact that these hormones are helping women to live longer and happier lives.
So I don't know if we're going to get to men on this situation, but okay. So we have a lot of males out there with prostate cancer and some other issues along that line. What about replacement therapy for men?
We also know that on men, thank you for bringing that up, Paul, because, I'm 65 and do I use testosterone? Absolutely. Because I know that using testosterone puts me at a lower risk for prostate cancer. If I were to get prostate cancer, we know that testosterone therapy slows the growth, the advancement of that cancer, which surprised the heck out of urologists. They had no idea. They thought that testosterone would be like throwing gasoline on the fire. Another true fact is that once men have been treated for prostate cancer, if the doctor has taken them off of testosterone but puts them back on testosterone therapy, they have less recurrence of the prostate cancer. Now, we also know that men who are using testosterone have a lower risk of adult onset diabetes, which is horrible. The number 1 health condition in America is metabolic syndrome, which is the precursor to adult onset diabetes. And so we know that men have a 20% decreased risk of adult onset diabetes by using testosterone. And plus, we have less aches and pains. We're clearer brains. We age more slowly. We live longer. And so, yes, testosterone therapy is valuable for men, just like hormone therapy is for women. Thanks for bringing that up.
So how do we calculate the dose? I mean, is it done by reading the testosterone in the system, or how do we calculate the dose?
What we're looking at is successful patient outcomes. So how do you know if you have a successful patient outcome? Well, for me, if the patient has had improved quality of life, let's just say they have more energy, they have better mood, they have more boom, boom in the bedroom, I mean, it's a part of a relationship, right? And if they are feeling better, and then we look at their health markers, and their health markers, their blood sugar's better, their cholesterol's better, then we know that we're helping them in that manner. Now, let's go a little further and say, why don't we do a lab? And so I do serum labs on my patients all the time. My doctors do serum labs. And what we find out is that if they were in an optimal part of the range, they have a better quality of life. They have better health markers. And so we try to get them to that optimal portion of the range. Because let's say on men, testosterone the range is 250 to 1100. Where in that range do men feel the best? Well, I mean, I keep mine at about 895. So it's in the upper part of the range, but it's not crazy outside the range. I have a lot of men who think I need to go outside the range because if a little does a little good, a lot does a lot of good. And that's not correct. That is not correct. And so we have to get them balanced with their estrogens. Have to get them into the proper portion of the range in order to be optimal.
Okay. I'd like to bring back, when we come back, talk about diabetic products that we can use as compounded through the skin. Is that possible?
Yes, we do have some. Matter of fact, we can talk about that if you'd like. Do we need to go for a break?
Yep. Out of here.
Okay.
You're listening to Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Okay, we are back. Just a quick note and a reminder here that all of our stores have Janssen 1-dose COVID vaccine available for immunization. And I believe we still have Moderna vaccine. Is that correct, Brad?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. We're talking with Jim Hernser from Texas about compounding today. So where are we at, Jim? Well, I was going to open up with the glucose thing, but it's your choice. What do you want to do?
Well, I can hit that real quick, though.
Okay.
Just as I said earlier, compounding allows us a broader range of therapies than is traditionally available for patients. And so an example, for people who have adult onset diabetes or they have insulin resistance, one of the normal medicines is prescribed is metformin, but metformin is a killer on the stomach and intestinal tract. And the majority of patients who try to take it just cannot tolerate it. And so what we can do is compound it into a transdermal cream to go through the skin into the bloodstream, misses the stomach, misses the intestinal tract. They don't have that stomach upset, and they get the good effects of helping insulin work better in their bodies. So just another example of how compounding can overcome some difficulties in therapy.
And I know you've been in this timeline that when Syntex first sort of invented the through the skin medications, I think scopolamine was the first one or something along that line. Why do you think it's taken so long to get commercially prepared through the skin medications?
I can say that when I invented the estradiol transdermal gel back in 1986, it was widely accepted by doctors in the area. They just seemed to get it almost immediately that made sense to bypass the liver by taking it through the skin rather than orally. It had some advantages. And so the doctors really liked that idea. Well, drug companies finally recognized it. And matter of fact, they sent the FDA into my pharmacy, my drug company, and said that pharmacist is an illegal manufacturer of estradiol transdermal gel, and we want him closed down. Now, I don't know how a drug company can go to the FDA and demand that a pharmacy get closed down. Well, it turns out the FDA inspected me and they said, you know what, you're doing a good job and you're not doing anything wrong. And you know what they also told me? They said, we resent the fact that this drug company is trying to get your invention patented, and they're trying to use us as a way to help them. And so we resent that. And so, the FDA was actually on my side on that, So even back then, it was recognized that product is now available commercially. It's called Estrogel, which is estradiol transdermal gel. And that was my product, from 1986, just trying to help my girlfriend.
Very interesting. How interesting. Okay, let's get back to the script.
Okay.
Okay. Are compounded prescriptions safe? Many people ask that question. And even if it is legal. So we kind of covered that, but would you address the question?
One thing I haven't said is that guys like pharmacies like y'all that are very ethical, like ours, and most of the really high performing compounding pharmacies do testing. I send off my compounds twice a year for every technician that makes compounds. They send off for testing for potency and just to prove that they can make it, and it's a great way. It's a great way to learn, are you doing a good job, and to prove and validate that you're doing a good job. And so anyway, if you don't test, you can't prove that you're doing a good job, right? And so I do take pride in the fact that we pass every technician on every dosage form that they make, whether it's a capsule or a cream or a solution, even suppositories. They have to pass that potency test, which proves that they have proficiency. And I think that's impressive. And I don't think that most of our patients even know that we do that. It's an expense we incur, but it's worth it to prove that we do a good job.
It almost seems like there's a constant threat, though, from the FDA on compounders. Has that kind of leveled off, or where are we at on this?
I'm not anti-FDA, but I am anti-FDA overreach. Okay. And there's occasions where they overreach the authority granted to them by Congress, because Congress created FDA. Congress tells FDA what they want them to do, and then FDA is supposed to be the enforcement agency. Unfortunately, there has developed within the FDA an anti-compounding culture, and this was actually verified not only through Freedom of Information Act, where we get emails from the FDA that shows that they are very anti-compounding, but also the last head of the FDA, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, MD, actually announced it at a conference I was at. He said, we have an anti-compounding culture in the FDA. And so we are not on your side. And I was just thinking, I don't need them to be on my side, but I need them to not think that they need to make us go away. And I think that we should all be concerned, all of us, if a governmental entity can just decide one day, you know what, I don't like that industry and I'm going to get rid of it. Let's just imagine that they just get a bug in their rear end about a bad doctor. And they try to start regulating doctors and say, you know what, we don't even need doctors because they're all bad anyway, because of just one bad doctor or one bad lawyer. We're going to legislate lawyers out of existence. Well, they are actually trying to regulate us out of existence. And they've even said emails like, okay, this is another nail in the coffin of compounders from the FDA. And I don't think that it's correct for them to try to completely erase an industry, because look, there's 7,000 compounding pharmacies in America that are serving millions and millions of patients. I mean, 8 million patients that are just getting hormones, and compounded hormones. So shouldn't we all be a little concerned, maybe a lot concerned, when a governmental agency just gets a bias and says, you know what, I'm going to eliminate that industry? That bothers me.
Wow. So what happens if you take this industry away? And what happens to the patients that are using all these compounded meds?
Well, just think about all the doctors that are depending on compounded medications to achieve outcomes that they can't achieve with traditional medicines. I mean, it's not that traditional medicines are bad, but we give them an alternative, a choice, and patients should have a choice. I mean, 8 million men and women in America are choosing to use compounded bioidentical hormones, and there's only 15 million patients in America that are even using hormones, and we've got over half of them. And it's because those patients and their doctors have a belief system that we're doing a good job and that we represent a safer and better alternative than what's commercially available. Now, how can it be a good thing if choice is eliminated? I might ask a listener, how can that be a good thing? It can't be. We need to have choice.
I know you're actively involved with legislators and that sort of thing, and trying to hold, compounding in play in the U.S. So what are you doing?
I heard one time that if you're not on the at the table, you're on the menu. So if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, which means that if we don't get in the game, and the game is getting in and letting lawmakers know our story, then they're not going to help us. There's a lot of lawmakers on the Hill who do believe in what we do. And matter of fact, even guys who wrote the Drug Quality Security Act believe in compounding. They just wanted to have a better set of rules for us. Okay. And those of us who do a good job welcome those rules. We are happy to have rules that ensure safety. But it is a good idea for compounders and also for patients to let their congressman know that, you know what, I love my compounded hormones. I love my compounded medications. It's made a difference in my life. Make sure that I have continued access to compounds.
I agree with you 110%, Jim, because if they try to eliminate the patient's rights to access for compounded hormones, where does it end from there? Does that extend to the infant that was born with a heart condition that has to have a special compounded medication so that they can take it because they don't make tablets or capsules for kids that are, under 2 years old? It just seems like it could be a snowball where it just doesn't stop. And I think the best way for maybe sometimes patients and the public to understand what compounding is if you or a loved one has ever been hospitalized and you've had an IV, you've probably had a compound. So in one form or another. So it's something to keep in mind that this touches a lot of people. And this situation of this polarizing issue of hormones is really just the tip of the iceberg. So
Absolutely. And it was never more evident than I was asked to testify in Washington, D.C. in front of a committee inside the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. And the FDA had commissioned a study that said, okay, we want to look at the clinical utility and safety of compounded bioidentical hormones. And what that means is they wanted to do a scientific study at this NASM, National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, to determine once and for all, are compounded hormones, beneficial or non-beneficial, and are they unsafe? And so it should have been a science piece. It should have been people who have no bias, who simply look at all the facts and then make some determinations, right? Well, instead, the FDA helped NASM put people on the committee that were anti-compounding, that matched its own stance. The FDA influenced who was on the committee and who was going to testify. And also they even influenced the conclusions of that study because they had people in on those meetings from the FDA helping them to conclude what the FDA wanted to have happen. Now, that's not science. That is an opinion piece. And here the American public paid $2 million for this study. And all it was an opinion piece by the biased FDA against compounding. And, here's what's really, really bothersome. That committee said that patients who choose to use compounded bioidentical hormones are not smart enough to make decisions about their own healthcare. They said that out loud. My patients are very well informed. I mean, they come in quoting facts to me. And I mean, I teach this, to doctors. I teach doctors how to do this. And these patients are quoting facts to me. They're very well informed. And number two, the committee said doctors who choose to prescribe compounded bioidentical hormones for their patients are not smart enough to make good clinical decisions for their patients.
ouch.
Now, can you imagine a doctor who is really, really smart and who cares about their patients and is trying to do the right thing for their patients? They've noticed that their patients are doing better when they use compounded bioidentical hormones and then when they're using manufactured or big pharma hormones that maybe aren't as safe. And so they're choosing for their patients to use these, and they're being told, I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. I resent that. And and we should all be bothered.
Come on.
And I want to make one other point on this is that the FDA is ruled by a federal law that says if you commission a study through NASM, which is a federally funded group, you cannot influence the study either prior to the beginning of the study, the middle of the study, or the end of the study. You cannot do it. It's a federal law. And they violated that federal law all the way through this study. And basically it was designed, this law was designed to protect monies that are being spent by the American public against bias pieces, which is exactly what this turned out to be.
Jeez.
Isn't that bothersome?
It is
Very
truly bothersome. Okay. Last breaks here. Listen to Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy.
You're listening to Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy and your hosts, pharmacists Paul White and Brad White. Remember, you can get more information right now by visiting medshoprx.com. That's MEDSHOPRX.com. We'll be back with more of Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy in just a moment.
Are you tired of spending time sorting your medication? Hi, pharmacist Paul White for the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Whether you are a caregiver or personally take medications, our pill packets will change how you take your medication forever. Instead of multiple pill bottles, you'll want to receive one easy dispensing box that contains all of your medications in individual packets. Organized by date, time, with instructions clearly labeled, it's simple, convenient, and safe. Call or stop by your local Medicine Center pharmacies in Canton, Louisville, Minerva, and New Philadelphia, where wellness begins. Do you have to blood test because you have diabetes? Is the price of the test strips nearly have you in the poorhouse? At the Medicine Center Pharmacies, we give you, at no charge, a complete test kit with strips as a starter. Then when you purchase more strips, expect a cost savings price of $7.99 for 50. A huge savings over many brand name test strips. So stop in any Medicine Center Pharmacy in Canton, Louisville, Minerva, and New Philadelphia for info. Also, we have curbside service, drive-through windows, and free delivery service. Hi, Paul White from the Medicine Center Pharmacy. In these difficult days, please stay calm and make sure your medical and healthcare supplies are well stocked. Make sure you have Kleenex, acetaminophen or Tylenol, ibuprofen or Advil, Mucinex, Robitussin or Dayquil, cough drops, maybe even a humidifier or a vaporizer. You can also just turn the shower on hot and sit in the bathroom breathing in the steam. How about vitamin D and a probiotic? So take care of yourselves and don't stress about the coronavirus. Make sure you get plenty of rest and plenty of healthy food. Medicine Center Pharmacy, Canton, Louisville, Minerva, and New Philadelphia. Poison ivy can be a real pain and very hard to deal with. Hi, Paul White from the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Let me recommend a product that I have personally used, Poison Ivy Pills. This homeopathic remedy prevents and treats the effects of poison ivy, oak, and sumac. It's completely safe for adults and children, and there aren't any side effects, so ditch the itch and get relief with Poison Ivy Pills at the Medicine Center Pharmacies in Canton, Louisville, and Minerva, where wellness begins. Vote for us, a multi-winner of Best of the Best Pharmacy.
We'd like to remind our listeners that our program is available on our podcast. Use your favorite podcast app and go to the App Store and look for Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy, and we'd appreciate if you'd subscribe.
You're listening to News Talk 1480 WHBC and Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Now here's your host, Paul White.
Welcome back to Health Matters. Today we are talking with Jim Hernsler from Texas about compounding.
All right, Jim, now's the big time. You know, we've kind of talked a little bit about some of the benefits and some of the frustrations that compounding pharmacies have with the FDA. Why don't we talk about how patients can take control and make sure that their legislators hear their story? Can you share how people can protect their right to access for compounded prescriptions? What do you recommend?
I want to start with a little story. And back in 2007, a drug manufacturer wanted to get rid of us compounders, and they knew that that as far as hormone therapy goes, we use a hormone called estriol, which imparts extra safety to our compounds for hormones for women. Well, the drug manufacturer knew that that was an advantage for us, and so it said, FDA, these compounders are using estriol, and we would like to see you ban estriol in America because it represents a significant health risk to the women of America. Now, what that drug company didn't say is that they had two products in Europe that had estriol in it, and they were making a lot of money in Europe, but they didn't have a product in America. So they were trying to get rid of us. Well, the women of America heard about the FDA trying to ban estriol, and they rose up. And they rose up big, and they started calling the FDA. They started calling congressmen. They were writing emails. They flooded the Hill with pleads to do not take away my compounded hormones. And I'll be darned if the Congress told the FDA back off. So, and again, they were just trying to overreach. So here we have today another opportunity for the FDA to use the conclusions from that NASM study I was talking about. And they are plotting to, again, try to eliminate compounded hormones from choice for Americans. So what we're hoping will happen is that patients will be incensed and they will say, you know what, I want to preserve my choice to use compounded hormones. And therefore we've created a website, www.compounding.com. That's compounding.com. And you can go on there and please give a testimony. The testimony will go into a database that will be state by state and district by district of the congressman. The congressman will see your testimony, and it will influence them to help us in our battle to maintain access for patients. And also on that website, there's even an opportunity for you to even write direct letters to your congressman, because it'll have, okay, who's your congressman in your area? And it will give their contact information so that you can write it directly to your congressman. Our organization, the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding, will help direct that to the congressman. We have a national PR campaign going on right now to get the word out to congressmen, to lawmakers, and also to doctors and to patients to become more awareness to this issue. So please go to that www.compounding.com and write to your congressman, write your testimony, and help us out. We'll even take donations.
I put the link to that in for those watching on Facebook Live. The link is in the first comment, and then we'll have show notes for this program also on our website later today that you can follow that link easily too. But, it's kind of like voting. Whether you choose or not to vote is your prerogative, but I don't want anybody to be upset if something bad happens in this situation and you didn't tell your story of how you were impacted. So please hear Jim's call and just take a couple minutes and write a short letter to your congressman and why you feel that you've benefited from a compounded therapy. It would be helpful for the whole country. So Jim, why don't we, before we wrap up real quick, how about we talk about some other developments in the field that you're excited about, or maybe some fun story you had helping Dr. Phil's wife, or something to leave our listeners with a morsel of excitement and fun for Friday morning.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about a lot of the therapies that I do a lot of teaching. Okay, I teach traditional doctors how to incorporate integrative medicine into their practice. And that means using compounds to the best advantage, using nutritional supplements, and even diet. And so it's really rewarding for me to see patients under these physicians and nurse practitioners and PAs advancing beyond where they were before. One of the things that I'm most proud of, other than the hormones and saving my marriage, is I work with soldiers with traumatic brain injury and PTSD. And these guys, are heroes. And so I donate my time. I run labs on these guys. I also supply their prescriptions and supplements. And I've developed protocols for them to help decrease the inflammation in their brain from the traumatic brain injury. And when we do that decrease in inflammation, we get these guys reintegrated back into society. And they were heroes. I mean, these are guys that do things that we could only dream of. And here they are protecting our safety, our health, our freedom. And they're committing suicide at a rate of 2.5 times what other Americans are. And I just felt horrible about that. And so anyway, we have now treated 80 soldiers, and they are doing so great.
Wow.
And we haven't lost a single one to suicide, and all of them have those thoughts. And I'm so proud that we're able to help these guys, because they deserve it. So.
That's awesome, Jim. I have to say, I'm afraid we're out of here. Do you want to give a quick contact info for listeners that are interested in you and your practice?
Well, they can sure look up www.lascalinespharmacy.com, and we have a nice website, and they can, if they want to have questions, I can sure send them to the website, and I'm happy to answer them. I answer all questions. I don't care if they're in my area or not.
Thanks, Jim. You're awesome.
Gosh, thanks a lot. We need more time here today. Like another hour. Thank you to our guest, Jim Hernser, pharmacist of Las Colinas Pharmacy, Compounding and Wellness. We'd like to remind our listeners, if you suspect you have a medical issue, please contact your healthcare provider. Thanks to Studio Arts and Glass, and of course, our technical producer, JD Angelis. As always, we thank our listeners for joining us on Health Matters with the Medicine Center Pharmacy. Have a healthy week, and we'll see you right here next Friday on Newstalk 1480 WHBC. And thank you, Cleveland Clinic Mercy Medical Center.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Medicine Center Pharmacies.
It's the 14th annual Alt Care Wishathon, benefiting
Love to hear about the
wishers and
soldiers
happy.
sometime on what all you're doing. I mean, that's just fabulous.
Yeah, Paula, I've got protocols I'm happy to share with you guys if y'all want to see them, because maybe you could even use my protocol for your patients there. I mean, I developed these. I had my sister had an aneurysm at my 50th birthday party.
Wow.
Anyway, she got a TBI from that, obviously. She's still here and it's great, but it changed her, and so I got to see firsthand what a TBI can do. And then my daughter had an accident, got T-boned, knocked out. 6 months later, she's driving on the highway and all of a sudden has PTSD. I mean, just panic attacks. Never had it before. So we don't understand much about TBI. And here are these soldiers. I mean, they're calling in airstrikes 20 yards from their position. Can you imagine the concussion? I mean, they're heroes. I mean, and I could tell you story after story after story about how these guys are recovering because of our therapy. And so it is so rewarding. And I tell you, I did 2 cases yesterday. It's just, I just love it. I just love it.
I'm thinking you're close to an air base down there in Texas, aren't you? Air Force Base.
I work with a foundation, Paul. There is an air base, yes, in Fort Worth. Matter of fact, my neighbor across the street was the commander of the force there. But there's a foundation in Dallas called Defenders of Freedom, and they asked me, said, Jim, do you know anything about TBI and PTSD? I said, absolutely, I do, but I can't believe it. And so anyway, it is just like we just happened to coincide at exactly the right time, and we've been doing this for a few years now. And we're getting better and better at it. I can tell you.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you for helping these guys out, and thanks for showing up today on the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. And if y'all want to see the protocol, just send me an email and I'll shoot it back to you. Okay.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right, Jim.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, appreciate it. Have a great day.
Great seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Okay. So appreciate you using it or letting us do this.
Great.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Adios.
Adios.